Right, billions of rands have been pumped in to save some of the struggling SOEs. The aviation sector is basically in shambles. Can it be rescued? Wayne Duvenage, CEO of OUTA, says that's the organization undoing tax abuse, rather. He joins us now live to answer that question for us and to unpack the issues. Mr. Duvenage, thank you very much for your time, especially at this time of the evening. Now, of course, we saw what happened with SAA. We saw what happened to SA Express last year, those employees not being at work since April last year. We've seen now, or we've heard earlier this week, that Mango is also going into business rescue. It seems like a ripple effect in our aviation industry.
Yes, and more specifically, the government-controlled or government-run aviation players, that is SAA, Mango and SA Express. These are all very lucrative airlines running very well for a number of years, some for decades. But unfortunately, due to political meddling, gross mismanagement, we have these airlines pretty much collapsed and becoming a massive drain on society. And then what's more, is this political meddling and favoritism and leniency towards the debt that these airlines run up creates an unlevel playing field for the private industry, which starts to compromise the entire industry now, because we even hear of funders and the lessors of aircraft to the private players saying that while they are happy to fund the private industry players, they're a bit concerned about the situation of the aviation industry in South Africa. And this is not good for everybody, because we, the taxpayer, and the private industry players are propping up the debt and other state-owned entities who provide services to aircraft, such as AXA, the airports company, such as the ATNS, the traffic navigation services, the weather people, SARS themselves, are all owed money by the state airlines.
And also, isn't there any concern, Mr. Duvenage, for instance, in terms of the fiduciary responsibilities of the boards of these airlines?
Yes, absolutely. You know, Mango, as you said earlier, was placed into, or the state is seeking to place Mango into business rescue. The executive management of Mango last year, over a year ago, in May 2020, had already indicated to the shareholder, that's the Department of Public and Enterprises, that Mango needed to be placed in business rescue at that time. Now, a year has gone by. People's salaries have been half paid and some months not even paid. Creditors have lost money, and yet they continue to trade, when most airlines around the world, 2 months into the COVID pandemic, had pretty much restructured their organizations, restructured debt with their lessors and so forth. And here we had Mango just continuing to trade as if nothing was wrong. Obviously, at that stage, SAA was already in business rescue. So we have serious concerns, and that in April this year, the board of Mango had resolved to place the airline in liquidation, while the Department of Public Enterprises was negotiating or motivating to SCOA, the Standing Committee on Appropriations, that they needed 819 million rand as part of SAA's bailout to be rediverted to Mango. And at the same time, announcing a couple of months later that there's this deal with the consortium, Takatso, and that Mango was supposed to be, you know, an integral element of SAA's continuation, and yet they were very aware that this airline was in financial distress. So there are a lot of concerns around the fiduciary duties and what's been happening at Mango and SAA.
And Mr. Duvenage, I think what's more surprising for a lot of us is that when I was growing up, it was quite an honor to, you know, or it was a dream for a lot of us to become part of the aviation industry, especially finding out that you could be a pilot or even an air hostess was quite exciting for a lot of us. And to see people not having jobs right now and workers being owed salaries is quite painful.
Well, it is, and you know, the pandemic has exacerbated that matter. So, airline pilots and crew around the world have really had a tough time. But I think in SAA's case, even pre the pandemic, it is a sad reality to see how many people have lost their jobs not because of the pandemic, but because of the mismanagement and the political meddling, and that's what it really comes down to at SAA, and causing this airline, this really well-respected airline around the world, to go into demise. It is so sad to see that. Another serious concern we have is that the Department of Transport is supposed to ensure that the International Air Services Council is correct, that it has a board, and that it can look at airline or air traffic licensing of aircraft that fly into and out of South Africa. That hasn't been put in place for a number of months now, since April, and SAA and Mango have the rights to a number of these routes, and yet airlines, private airlines who have been trying to fly and keeping themselves afloat with no aid from the state, by the way, would like to fly along those routes, would like to get those licenses, and they cannot do so because the Department of Transport has been remiss in its duties to appoint a new board. We believe this is potentially a situation of them doing so to protect SA, so that once it gets up and running again, it can hold on to those licenses. And that's very, very unfair, and it's creating this unfair playing field. Massive debt, as I said, at AXA, massive debt at other state aviation concerns through SAA and Mango has not been forced to be paid. Yet if you're a private airline, let me tell you, if you don't pay your AXA bills and your ATNS bills promptly, you get grounded. So there's such unfair situation taking place in aviation in South Africa, and that's not good for this country.
And just with the last 30 seconds that I have with you, I mean, I'm looking at this paper you compiled about how much is owed, and looking at the airlines alone, that's about 175 million, over 175 million that you've jotted down as what is owed to government by state-owned, airlines. So is the solution for us to just go private to sort of get rid of the red tape and the political interference?
Yeah, you see, government needs to be an enabler and not a player in this game, because they cannot play. They do not understand the intricacies, the competitive nature, and the fine margins that these airlines operate on. Many countries around the world have state airlines, but the state is not owners of those airlines. Air New Zealand, Lufthansa, British Airways, and the government is not involved in the running of those airways. That's what we needed here. But here the state wants to hold on, try and make these airlines profitable, and they've got no idea how to do so. So here we have, and that amount of 175 million is just to air traffic navigation services. These three airlines, government airlines, owe the airports company 320 million, they owe SARS 335 million. This is the despicable and diabolical situation that we have. So they should be privatized, sold off, and what they need to do, government, is enable a good competition, enable safe flying for the public, and let the business get on with running airlines, not government. They don't know how to do this.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. That is OUTA's Wayne Duvenage speaking to us there. Now,